Margaret stood in the middle of her kitchen, staring at the microwave like it belonged in somebody else's house. Not because she couldn't see it, not because she was confused about what it did, but because for nearly 10 full seconds, she could not remember the word microwave. Now, if you're over 60 watching this, you've probably had moments like that yourself. We all have. You walk into a room and suddenly forget why you went in there. You blank on a neighbor's name. You put your glasses in the refrigerator and your yogurt in the cabinet. I once spent 15 minutes looking for my car keys while holding them in my left hand, so believe me, I am not standing here pretending I'm above any of this. But Margaret's moment was different, because 3 months later she got lost driving home from the grocery store she had been going to since 1998. Same route, same traffic light, same pharmacy on the corner. And suddenly nothing felt familiar anymore. Her daughter told me later, "That's when I realized this wasn't normal forgetting. Something was changing." And here's the part that shook me the most. Margaret had been doing almost everything right. Her cholesterol looked acceptable. Her blood pressure wasn't terrible. She walked a few times a week. She wasn't sitting at home eating candy bars all day. But inside her brain, silent damage had been building for years before anybody recognized the symptoms. Tiny blood vessels stiffening, inflammation increasing, sleep disruption starving her brain of nighttime repair, oxygen delivery slowly declining. And today, I need to show you something that honestly should be discussed in every doctor's office in America. Up to 45% of dementia cases may actually be preventable, not curable after the fact, preventable before the catastrophic decline begins. Now I need you to stay with me because this is where most people misunderstand dementia completely. Most people think dementia begins the day memory disappears. That is not how this works. Dementia is usually the final visible stage of a process that has often been unfolding silently for 10, 15, sometimes even 20 years. And the tragedy is that many of the drivers behind that process are things we can influence. Not perfectly, not magically, not with one supplement some guy on the internet is screaming about at 2 a.m., but meaningfully. And that matters, because this conversation is not really about memory. It's about independence. It's about staying recognizable to the people you love. It's about keeping your ability to drive yourself to lunch, balance your checkbook, tell your granddaughter the same stories you've told her 100 times. This is about protecting the life inside the brain. So today, I'm going to walk you through the 7 major drivers researchers now believe contribute to a massive percentage of preventable dementia cases. And I'm not just going to tell you what they are, I'm going to show you what's actually happening inside the aging brain in plain English. No medical school lecture, no jargon gymnastics, just the information I wish more people were given before the damage becomes difficult to reverse. And if you've ever walked into a room and forgotten why you went there, comment memory below, because I want you to understand something very clearly before we continue. Occasional forgetfulness is not automatically dementia. Your brain is not doomed because you misplaced your remote control. But there are certain patterns, certain changes, certain warning signs that deserve attention much earlier than most people realize. And the first one is probably the most dangerous because it happens completely silently in millions of people every day. High blood pressure. Now, when most people think about blood pressure, they think heart attack, stroke, maybe kidney disease. Very few people think about dementia, but they should, because your brain depends on an unbelievably delicate network of tiny blood vessels. Tiny, some thinner than a strand of hair. And those vessels are responsible for delivering oxygen and nutrients to billions of brain cells every second of every day. Think of your brain like a massive city. The neurons are the people. The blood vessels are the roads. Oxygen is the fuel delivery system. Now imagine those roads slowly becoming cracked, narrowed, and stiff over years. Traffic still moves, technically, but not efficiently, not reliably. Some neighborhoods stop getting enough supplies. That is exactly what chronic high blood pressure does to the brain. The constant pressure damages the inner lining of blood vessels. The vessels become stiff, less flexible, less responsive. Tiny areas of the brain begin receiving less blood flow. And here's the terrifying part. You don't feel this happening. There's no alarm bell, no flashing red light, No dramatic symptom in the beginning, the damage accumulates quietly. Researchers now believe this chronic vascular injury plays a major role in both vascular dementia and Alzheimer's disease itself, and this is where I need to say something that honestly frustrates me. Too many people are told, your pressure's a little high, but it's not terrible. Meanwhile, their brain has been living under excessive vascular stress for years. Now, before anybody panics, let me be very clear. This does not mean every person with hypertension will develop dementia, but it absolutely means your brain cares deeply about blood flow. And if you are over 60, one of the most important conversations you can have with your doctor is this: I want to make sure my blood pressure is being managed in a way that protects both my heart and my brain. What is the safest target for my age and health status? That exact sentence. Because this is not about chasing the lowest number possible. In some older adults, blood pressure that drops too aggressively can actually reduce blood flow to the brain. This is why individualized medicine matters. This is why you deserve more than a rushed 5-minute appointment and a generic handout. Now stay with me because the next driver may be even more important. And once you understand it, you'll understand why some neurologists have started referring to Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes. Insulin resistance. Now I know some of you just rolled your eyes and thought, oh wonderful, another doctor blaming sugar for everything. Fair enough. Healthy skepticism is good, but let me show you what's actually happening. Your brain is one of the most energy-hungry organs in the human body. Even though it only makes up about 2% of your body weight, it uses roughly 20% of your energy. That's enormous. Brain cells require a constant, stable fuel supply to function correctly, and insulin plays a major role in helping cells use glucose properly. But over years of chronic high blood sugar and insulin resistance, cells gradually stop responding efficiently. Think about trying to charge your phone with a damaged charging cable. The electricity exists, but the connection is poor. The battery drains anyway. That's similar to what can happen inside insulin-resistant brain cells. Researchers have found that impaired glucose metabolism appears in the brain years before Alzheimer's symptoms fully emerge. Years. And suddenly, Margaret's story started making more sense. Because when I reviewed her history carefully, there were clues everywhere. Afternoon exhaustion, brain fog after meals, constant sugar cravings, difficulty concentrating, poor sleep. But nobody connected those dots to long-term brain health. She thought she was just getting older. I hear that phrase constantly, just getting older. And sometimes aging is part of the story. But too often we dismiss biological distress as inevitable aging when the body has actually been signaling for help for years. Now here's where things become even more serious. Because the next driver accelerates nearly everything we've talked about so far. And millions of seniors have it without realizing it. Sleep apnea. If you snore heavily, wake up exhausted, need to urinate multiple times during the night, wake with dry mouth, or feel tired no matter how many hours you sleep, you need to hear this section carefully. Because while you are sleeping, your brain is supposed to be performing critical maintenance and repair. Think of nighttime sleep like a cleaning crew entering an office building after everybody leaves. Deep sleep is when the brain clears metabolic waste products, stabilizes memory, regulates inflammation, and repairs tissue. One of the substances cleared during deep sleep is beta amyloid, the protein associated with Alzheimer's disease. Now imagine that cleaning crew constantly getting interrupted every few minutes all night long. That's what sleep apnea does. Oxygen levels drop, stress hormones spike, the brain partially wakes itself repeatedly to keep you breathing, and many people never fully realize it's happening. They just think they're tired because they're older. Meanwhile, the brain is being deprived of oxygen and restorative deep sleep night after night after night. And here's what's heartbreaking. I have had patients tell me, Dr. Whitmore, I thought snoring was harmless. No, sometimes it is harmless, sometimes it is not. And one of the most important things you can say to your doctor is, I'm concerned about my sleep quality and possible sleep apnea because I've learned it may affect long-term brain health. Should I have a sleep study? Again, exact words. Because advocating for yourself matters. Now, the next risk factor shocked researchers when they started studying it: hearing loss. Most people think hearing loss is simply an ear problem. It's not. It's a brain problem, too. Imagine trying to follow every conversation through a terrible phone connection all day long. Your brain works overtime trying to fill in missing sounds and missing words. That extra effort creates cognitive strain, and over time, many people with untreated hearing loss begin withdrawing socially. They stop going to dinner parties because conversations are exhausting. They stop participating, stop engaging, stop stimulating the brain socially and emotionally. And loneliness itself turns out to be another major dementia risk factor. This is the part of medicine that frustrates me deeply sometimes, because we tend to separate everything. The ears belong to one specialist, the brain belongs to another, sleep belongs to somebody else. But the human body is one interconnected system, and the brain suffers when those systems begin failing together. Now, I need to pause here for something extremely important. Please do not hear this video as every person with hearing loss is destined for dementia. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that protecting hearing may also help protect cognitive function. And if you've been resisting hearing aids because you think they make you look old, let me gently tell you something. Struggling to hear isolates the brain far more than a hearing aid ever will. Now, unfortunately, the next driver may be sitting in your medicine cabinet right now: certain medications. Now, let me be careful here, because I never want people stopping medications suddenly because of something they heard online. That can be dangerous. But there are medications associated with increased confusion, sedation, memory impairment, and cognitive decline in older adults, especially medications with strong anticholinergic effects. Some sleep medications, some bladder medications, certain antihistamines, certain anxiety medications. The aging brain becomes more sensitive to these compounds over time. Think of it like placing a dimmer switch over brain activity. Some people describe it as feeling foggy, slowed down, disconnected. And the most important thing here is not fear, it's review, medication review. Every adult over 60 should periodically ask, can we review my medications together and identify whether any may be affecting memory, cognition, balance, or long-term brain health? That conversation alone has helped some of my patients tremendously, because sometimes nobody steps back to look at the entire medication picture together. One doctor prescribes one thing, another adds another, and slowly the burden accumulates. Now stay with me, because we're about to talk about one of the most underestimated dementia risk factors of all: loneliness. And I don't mean occasionally enjoying quiet time alone, I mean chronic isolation. The human brain is deeply social. Conversation stimulates memory. Connection regulates stress hormones. Relationships protect emotional health. I've watched patients decline rapidly after losing a spouse, not because they were weak, not because they gave up, but because human connection is biological medicine. Chronic loneliness increases stress hormones like cortisol, increases inflammation, worsens depression, disrupts sleep, and reduces cognitive stimulation. The brain begins shrinking inward from lack of engagement. And this is why I tell families something very important. Protecting brain health is not only about puzzles and vitamins. It's about maintaining life, community, purpose, routine, laughter, conversation, emotion. Now, finally, we need to discuss the factor that may tie almost all of this together: movement, physical inactivity. And before anybody clicks away because they think I'm about to tell them to run marathons at age 72, relax. That is not where we're going. Movement changes the brain directly. Exercise improves blood flow, improves insulin sensitivity, reduces inflammation, supports sleep, stimulates growth factors that help maintain brain cell connections. Movement is fertilizer for the brain. One of the most powerful things older adults can do for long-term brain health is consistent walking, not punishment exercise, not fitness influencer nonsense, just regular movement, 10 minutes after meals, daily walks, resistance training a couple times a week, balance exercises, dancing, gardening, anything that tells the brain and body, we are still adapting, we are still alive. And this is where Margaret's story begins changing. Because after her evaluation, several things became clear. Her sleep apnea had likely gone untreated for years, her blood sugar was unstable. Her hearing loss had become significant. She was isolated after losing her husband, and her physical activity had quietly collapsed over time. Not dramatically, gradually. That's how this usually happens. Slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. But once those patterns were identified, things began changing. Her sleep apnea was treated. Her medications were reviewed carefully. She began walking daily with a neighbor. She got hearing aids. Her diet improved. Her daughter started having dinner with her twice a week, and 6 months later, her daughter said something to me I'll never forget. She laughs again. Now, I need to be very honest here. This is not a miracle story. I am not telling you dementia can always be reversed. It cannot. Some forms are aggressive, some are heavily genetic, some continue progressing despite excellent care. But many of the biological processes that increase dementia risk are modifiable, and that matters enormously. So let me give you the practical plan I wish more seniors were taught years earlier. Check your blood pressure regularly and discuss individualized targets with your doctor. Protect sleep aggressively. If you suspect sleep apnea, get evaluated, walk daily, protect hearing early, review medications periodically, control blood sugar, maintain muscle mass, stay socially connected even when it feels easier to withdraw, and never ignore sudden cognitive changes, especially sudden confusion, getting lost, rapid personality changes, or major memory decline. Those deserve immediate medical attention. And before we finish, I want to leave you with the exact words I believe every older adult should feel comfortable saying to their doctor: I want to reduce my long-term dementia risk. Can we review my sleep, blood pressure, medications, blood sugar, hearing, and overall vascular health together? That question alone changes the conversation completely, because you deserve healthcare that looks at the whole brain, not just isolated symptoms. You deserve better information than a rushed appointment and a prescription refill. And if nobody has told you this lately, let me say it clearly. Your brain is worth protecting. Your memories matter. Your independence matters. And it is never too early or too late to start supporting the health of the most important organ in your body. If this video helped you understand dementia in a completely different way, subscribe and stay with us here. Because this channel exists for one reason: to give you the deeper explanations, the longer conversations, and the real preventive information most people never receive in a standard appointment. And if you know somebody who says, I'm just getting older, while ignoring changes in memory, sleep, blood pressure, or balance, please share this with them. Sometimes one conversation changes the entire direction of a person's future.